Hey everybody. So we know that reproduction is when organisms create offspring, which carries on to a new generation. So it allows their species to continue from generation to generation. And there's actually two main types of reproduction that have evolved in different species, and particularly in different kingdoms of life. And these are sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. So firstly, we'll look at asexual reproduction. And in this case, this is where an organism just either splits in half, like we can see this bacterium doing here, or it makes clones of itself, smaller clones, which then break off the organism and start growing on their own, like these little plantlets here that are growing on the leaf of another plant. So these little plantlets are clones of the parent plant, and eventually they'll drop off, and you can see they're already starting to grow roots, so they'll start growing around the parent plant. But they'll be clones of that plant. So in asexual reproduction, the offspring have the exact same genome as the parent, because they're literally copying their genes, their chromosomes and their genes. So that the offspring will be identical genetically. So the offspring are clones of the parent. So asexual reproduction, it happens in all the prokaryotes. So the bacteria and the archaea. As I talked about, it happens in some of the plants. Some plant species have evolved to be able to reproduce asexually, but they often also have flowers and can reproduce sexually as well. So some plants and a couple of animals actually do this too. Not many though. Alright, well the other form of reproduction, and it's probably the one we know more about, because this is the way humans reproduce, obviously, it's sexual reproduction. So if we're actually defining sexual reproduction, it's where a male and a female combine their genetic information together to make an offspring. Combine a genetic information to make an offspring. Alright, and obviously this happens in pretty much all of the animals and the plants as well, and the fungi. So the most common kingdoms that we're used to seeing. Okay, so this is where the terms haploid and diploid come into play, which we learnt about earlier. So this is the classic diagram of sexual reproduction. So we remember that in sexual reproduction, there's a sperm cell from the male and an egg cell from the female, and they combine together in fertilisation. And in humans, that happens in the fallopian tubes of the female. So the two cells fuse together and they make what's called a zygote. And then that zygote starts to divide through cell division and it grows into a new baby in humans, or it grows into a new offspring of whatever species it is. So in terms of the number of chromosomes, this is why some cells need to be haploid. And in most species, it's the sex cells that are haploid. And sex cells are called gametes. So sperm and eggs are called gametes, and they're haploid, so they've only got one copy of each chromosome. So you can see here there's only 3 chromosomes in this species. So during fertilisation, the sperm and the egg join together and they combine their chromosomes to give us a total of 6 in this species. So the zygote is diploid. And that's important so that the new offspring that grows has the same number of chromosomes as the parent. Because if the gametes had 6 chromosomes each, they'd combine together and the new baby would have 12, which would cause all kinds of issues for the cell, and basically the cell wouldn't be able to grow into a new baby at all. Okay, so that's the 2 types of reproduction.